Hi, I'm Anna McEwen, and this is The Epic Narrative. And now, my dad, Bob Switzer.
Welcome once again. Oh man, I love doing I just love it. I know I laugh every time. I laugh every time I start one of these things. There's just so much fun. It's so much fun to do this. And I really appreciate those of you that are listening, and I greatly appreciate my producer who actually makes this all possible. He just makes it all possible. If all I had to do was talk to make a podcast, right? I mean, that's what I was foolishly led to believe when I started. Well, just record something, get it online. Yeah, it's just not that easy. Not anymore, anyways. Maybe it was at one point, but anyways, when last we left, Joab had killed Abner. Abner, of course, was the cousin of Saul, who was the commander in chief of the military, who had maintained control of the northern tribes for 7 years and had transferred power to David peacefully. And the peacefully part came because of David. David was peaceful about it. David communicated both to Abner and to Ashibabeth, the king, and to the nations under him, or the tribes under him. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking to restore, to renew, to bring the country back together. And David was sincere in that, but Joab didn't share his vision. It didn't understand it, didn't capture the bigness of it. He just wasn't there. In his mind, he had to avenge his brother's death. Abner had killed his brother. It was up to Joab to kill Abner. It didn't matter that it happened in a time of war. It didn't matter that Abner tried to tell the brother not to chase him anymore. The battle was over. The battle had been won. Now you're after bonus points. Now, granted, Azarel was after the big bonus point. He was after Abner, the commander in chief. He knew internally this was going to be a big deal. If Abner dies, right, then the country's going to fall apart, and David can rule. I'm sure somewhere in his mind, everyone knew that king that he put in place can't make a decision without him. And if we kill Abner, the country will fall into line eventually. Anyways, enough about that. That was the last story. Yeah, let's rehearse that for 45 minutes, Bob, and then get on to the rest, the new part. But it's I did want to point out, there's family everywhere. Abner was Saul's son, cousin. Joab was Azarel's brother, and David is Joab's uncle. Azarel, of course, was a nephew of David. You can't get away from family. And sometimes within family, your vision can be small. And that happens to a lot. It's tough to raise children and allow them a vision to see the world as opportunity. Like they could go anywhere and really pursue whatever their heart desires. You still love them, you still want them around, you still want them to be a part of your life forever as a parent, and I'm speaking, personally as well at this point. But it's tough because when they're little, you can set them up to think that they really can't ever leave you. And I've seen parents do that, where they handicap incredibly talented and gifted people who have amazing opportunities to go somewhere. But in their childhood, the parents just kept saying, "Oh, I hope you never leave me. Oh, I can't imagine if you ever left. Oh, don't ever move. Don't ever leave. You can get married, go off to college or whatever. Find your mate, but you got to move back. Oh, I can't imagine. And you set up these bonds upon them, this bondage. And often they may leave, and then they just feel this constant pull back. And often, again, many times it's said in very sweet ways, but it's really manipulation and it's bondage. And you're basically saying, we'll take care of you if you come home. That's another way the parents will do it. If you stay around, I can get you a job. If you stay around, we can help you buy a house. If you stay around, we'll get you a car. If you move away, though, I don't know. If you stay around, well, we'll watch your children while you work. If you, for free. If you stay around, and you just, it's where blessings become bondage, because you can bless your kids without putting them in bondage. And at some level, Joab was in bondage to his vision that family was the greatest thing to defend, not the nation, not others, not the passion of God to reunite and bring the nation together and create a nation that would draw other nations to him. Joab was like, nope, family first. I don't care if it throws us all into civil war. I don't care. So even though he was forced to mourn Abner at his death and wear sackcloth and ashes and listen to David's song about Abner, I think internally Joab was always thinking, I did the right thing, at least for me. And man, selfishness will kill a vision. It'll kill a vision. But David knows. I'm sure David knows Joab's heart. I'm sure David internally knows Joab is he's not going to ever be happy with me about this. But David did the right thing. He was diplomatic. He continued to project this idea that he was going to go after peace, a peaceable transfer of power. So when word gets back to Ashibabeth, the son of Saul, the king of Israel, that Abner had died and had been killed, it says he lost courage and all of Israel becomes afraid. Alarmed, sorry. All of Israel becomes alarmed. That's really key. So Ish hears about Abner's death and he literally loses all confidence that he's going to survive. He just immediately spirals into that downward, like I'm a victim. Nothing good happens for me. He had some hope that at least he'd stay alive. Abner was going to transfer power. Remember, he challenged Abner, which is what put this whole thing into motion. And then when he saw Abner's response, he just totally shut down and became submissive to the point where he ordered David's first wife to be taken from her current husband and given back to David, just like Abner had requested, because he didn't want to cross Abner anymore. He wanted to do whatever he could to survive. He wanted to be alive at the end of this story. And now Abner's dead and David's in charge because the power's been transferred. That's what the wife represented. And what's going to happen to me? And he just doesn't know. He doesn't know. He can't make a decision. It's just, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like you could just picture him saying that. Like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. This is so bad. This is so bad. This is so bad. And he's probably talking to his servants or his attendants, and he's just like in this tearful, on the edge. I've got so many problems. I'm the king. Everybody, needs to listen to me, but no one will do what I say. And my guards hate me. They all followed Abner, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Now the tribes of Israel, the 10 tribes of Israel, they of course hear this, and they're probably expecting annihilation at this point. Fear paralyzed the nation of Israel. The 10 tribes they held their breath, because even though David was signaling peace, 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 Abner was now dead. Like Abner was their their go-to guy, their idea that Abner is running this, not Ashibabeth, because we all know he can't. Abner's in charge. We can trust Abner. Remember, Abner met with 9 of the tribal leaders, 9 tribal leaders, and then he specifically met one-on-one with the Benjamites, the house of Saul, and he assured all of them what was going to happen, but now he's dead. So they're paralyzed in fear. They don't know what's going to happen. And when you're paralyzed in fear, it also means there's no commerce going on. Trade is kind of shut down. I mean, I have no idea where we are in our timeline when this will actually be released. Sorry, it's going to be produced way ahead of this. But one of the things that happened under the coronavirus was fear. Fear was perpetuated, and many politicians that I observed were making decisions based on fear. And what do you do when you're afraid? You shut down commerce. And that was what happened, right? It came from the president at one point, for I think 3 weeks, right? We shut down the nation, except for essential businesses, which were always interesting. That whole thing is just interesting. The whole thing became interesting from my perspective because it just seemed very inconsistent. So I imagine when commerce gets shut down in a nation like Israel, which of course is a collection of 10 very large family tribal units, the commerce gets shut down officially, but there's people who just things need to get done, whether it's sheep need to be sheared or wine needs to be made or seeds need to be sown. Like, it got shut down, but it was more like you become self-contained. You hang out close to home. You don't go on journeys because you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't go visit other villages. You don't take your goods to another place where you might get a better price because you don't know what's going to happen. There could be a war. There could be troops marching on the tribes because Abner's dead. All right. So there's 2. It says, now Saul's son had 2 men who were leaders of raiding bands. So these are brothers, Benai and Rechab. Anyways, they were actually technically from another tribe, but they were considered part of Benjamin because they had fled there and had resided there as foreigners. So they were considered part of the tribe. And you got to keep that in mind as well. Like, in each tribe, even though it's all family, it's also other people that they pick up along the way. They help out a village, or they a group of refugees from another country, several hundred strong, find you, move into your area, and you work out good deals with them. You work out some marriages with them, and they officially become part of your tribe. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. And they were brothers, and they were part of raiding teams. So their job under Ashibabeth / Abner was to, go out in groups of men. I don't know if it's 10, if it's 20. It depends on, I'm sure, where they were going and what their assignment was. But their job was to find plunder, to just steal from other tribes, technically other nations, and bring it back into the storehouses of the king. Bring back whatever it was they stole. And that's what they did. They did this for a living. So their mentality is, their job fit the whole concept of the type of leadership that Ashibabeth ran or lived under, the type Abner lived under, the type Saul had created, which was go out, get what you want, take it, and then look for reward. The more you bring back to the king, the more he rewards you. the more access you have to the king, the more power you have, the more authority you have. And then when it comes time to handing out rewards, you'll get more. You'll get more land, you'll get more servants, you'll get more wives, you'll get more whatever. So these guys are used to this kind of mentality because that's what a selfish leadership does. They set up a reward system, and the reward comes, to you based on things you bring to the king, whether it be information or plunder or diplomatic opportunities. Like it all has to do with fear and selfishness. That's what it's based around. So these two guys look around. Now there's one other son of Saul. His name is Mephibosheth. Oh, I can't wait to see him more. He's more in the story later, but he had gotten injured when Saul had committed suicide / was killed by the Amalekite because he wasn't dying fast enough and wanted to die before the chariots of the Philistines arrived. When word got back that Jonathan had died and all that, Mephibosheth. You shouldn't do this live, Bob. You should have this produced. You should study these words before you start talking. I know I should. I know. But it's kind of fun to mess it up as well, because then maybe people who are like me can relate. Mephibosheth, his father was Jonathan. Anyways, they find out back at the palace that everybody's dead. So the nursemaid, the one who's in charge of him, starts rushing, picks him up and starts running with him. Get him out of the palace, right? We don't know. The Philistines are coming. We know they're going to come to the capital city. We know they're going to want the palace. We got to get him out. She starts running. She falls and evidently breaks his leg, and he's basically handicapped from that point on. He can't walk, or he can't walk well. I'm sure he either drags a leg or has a bad limp. I'm not sure what it is. There's lots of options when it comes to the legend behind it, the oral traditions behind it. Something was wrong with him, and because of that, he was never considered in line for the throne. He was Jonathan's son, but he was never really considered in line for the throne. So they didn't think of him when it came to, okay, who's next in line. These brothers are putting together a plan. They were like, all right, if we kill Ishbosheth and we show David that we are loyal to him, like that'll prove our loyalty beyond a shadow of a doubt. We will be up for incredible rewards. And I'm sure they talked themselves into this. Oh, you're right, brother. He's like, yeah, that's why I'm the oldest, because I have the good ideas. Like, I don't know. I kind of picture this always, like when I read this, I've read this as a movie, right? These guys get back, they're from a raiding party or whatever, and they realize that, Abner's transferred power. Like, that's unsettling. Now Abner's dead. The nation is kind of shut down in fear, waiting to see what David's going to do. Is he going to mount up war? Is he just going to take the nation by force? Like, what's going on? What's Ishbosheth going to do? Of course, we're all guessing he's just going to stay, in the basement under a blanket, hoping that somebody comes and tells him what to do. And these guys are like, all right, what can we do? What can we do? You know what'll work? We could put an end to this war. Oh yeah? How could we do that? Well, if we kill Ishbosheth and bring his head to David, then there's really no need for David to attack us. And we will be the ones who kill the one son of the man who tried to kill David. So we will become heroes to David. We'll probably get rewarded. Oh, brother, that's a great idea. Oh, I see where you're going with this. Yeah, David will, of course, reward us and will probably get prominent positions in his army. Oh, man, can you imagine? Oh, that'll work out great for us. We'd have land. Our families would be safe. We'd have position. Oh, this will work out great. And they throw another log on the fire and sip a little bit more wine or whatever it is they're sipping. And like, how are we going to do it? Yeah. Well, we could just walk into the palace. What do you mean walk into the palace? Well, because we're known raiders, like everybody knows us, we have access. We can just walk into the palace. We'll tell them we're looking to get supplies for another raid. Why would we go on a raid? Well, we'll just tell them the king sent us. I mean, technically, he's still in charge. Oh, yeah. Well, that's true. We could. But how are we going to know where Shibboleth is? I mean, if we wander around the palace with with our swords drawn. Oh, I know. We could go during nap time. Oh, yeah. We could. Yeah, we could go when he's sleeping. Which I'm guessing for Shibboleth was most of the day. I mean, this is a weak leader who feels incredible pressure all the time because he has no idea how to make a decision. He was never trained on how to make a decision. He was only trained on how to tell people what to do. And there's a big difference. There's lots of people who can tell people what to do who really can't make a decision. They just have power. They were given a position for whatever reason. And now, when decision time comes, they're paralyzed. And that's where Shibboleth is. And when you're paralyzed in your decision-making process and you don't know who you are and you don't know what you're going to do, the stress will make you feel tired and you just want to stay in bed or go back to bed. So these guys take advantage of their access to the king. They walk in. I'm sure there's servants and assistants of Shibboleth hanging around doing their job, waiting, right? They're just kind of going through the motions. There's no real security. There's no mention of guards. There's no mention of an elite troop of any sort that's there at the palace. I'm guessing because Abner was in charge of the military, and in essence, Abner had just given the military over to David, as well as the nation. They were kind of in limbo. Like, who's in charge? I don't know. As far as we know, everything was transferred to David, so David tells us what to do. So they're all gone. That's what I think. There might be a few of his good friends who are wandering around with a sword on their hip, but there's no real security. They walk in. They tell people, yeah, we're looking to get supplies. We're going to go on a raid. So the guys at the gate are like, all right, and then they go. They're wandering around. They find out that he's sleeping. They walk right in to his bedroom. Right into his bedroom. Now, I don't know. To me, this takes a moment. But maybe you get yourself so worked in to the excuse to kill somebody, or maybe you get so used to killing people that to kill somebody while they're sleeping is easy. I mean, I guess technically it is easy. I mean, they're not fighting back, and you can put the sword, right into their heart and kill them before they even know that you're there. So I guess at that part it's easy, but to actually do it, and again, for me, it's just probably because I value life so much that it just seems really like, for me, that is a long mental journey to get to kill somebody. But we know that people are there. We know that there are murderers out there, and there are trained killers out there that have no problem killing people. So these are two guys who have no problem killing somebody. So they get into the bedroom. He's snoring. He's lying there in bed, and they stab him. I got to think that his eyes open, right? Just as the knife is passing through his heart, and it stops. I think he opens his eyes. I don't think he sees them. Maybe he does. Maybe they were standing right over him. Maybe they wanted him to know. Maybe he had offended them, which wasn't a stretch to think that he had offended people, that maybe they didn't get their just reward or what they thought they deserved from him over the last few times that they brought back plunder from their raiding parties. I don't know. But boom, they arrived, it says, in the heat of the day. So this is the afternoon nap. This is when most people in leadership would go lay down because it's so hot, and you don't want to be working while you're sweating, right? This is when even the day laborers would often be given a tent or a lean-to of some sort to go huddle in the shade. Even though it's still hot, at least you're in the shade. You're not in the direct sunlight. And you'd wait a few hours till the sun kind of waned a little bit, and then you'd work until sunset. So there, he's taking his afternoon nap, and he never wakes up. And they cut off his head so that they can prove that he's dead and that they killed him. They cut off his head in the bed, and they walk out. So they must have had a bag. Again, they went there to get supplies, so it would not be suspicious to walk back out of the palace gates, where I'm sure there's a couple guards, but maybe not, at least a couple servants manning the gate. And they walked in with an empty bag, and they walk out with a bag full of, that looks full. Well, it's got a head in it. And maybe there were other bags they filled up with other things just to alleviate any suspicion of what they've done. And they start walking. And it says that they give us the way they traveled, but they traveled all night so that they could not be caught. But here's the thing. There's no mention of any alarm. There's no mention that anybody cared. You get the sense from reading the narrative here that they cut off his head and they walked out. And as far as the servants were concerned, Ishbosheth stayed in bed. He went down for a nap, and he stayed in bed all night. I mean, he was already kind of depressed, not alarmed. He had lost courage. Like he was despondent. He was stressed out. I'm so stressed. He took his nap and never got out. Nobody. I don't think they found him till morning. It doesn't mention that, but that's the sense I get from reading this. In the way that the words are translated, there's just no one cares that he didn't get out of bed. They probably felt better that he wasn't there, that he wasn't wandering around telling them to do things to try and look busy. He just died. And they walked all night just in case they were being chased. And they get to Hebron. And they bring the head of Ishbosheth to David. Now, how does that work? You just don't walk into David's throne, or his place of operation, I should say. It's not like he's always sitting on the throne, but his place of operation. They probably had to clear it with somebody, a guard maybe to begin with, and then they get in. Yeah, we have something for David. What do you have? We have a message from the nation, from Israel. We have to deliver it personally. All right, fine. Stand over there. So then security comes. What are you doing here? Well, my name is whatever, Benai, and this is my brother Rechab, and we're raiders, and we worked for Shibboleth, but now we work for David, our amazing king, and we're here to pledge loyalty to David, and we have something for him. Oh, yeah, we have a gift. We have a gift. And I cannot imagine that they got all the way in there with the head of a Shibboleth without somebody else knowing. And I'm guessing that somebody was probably somewhere along the line, upper management of the military. And I have a feeling they told Joab so that Joab was in the room when this occurred, just because information like this travels fast. Information like this travels through the verbal chain pretty quickly. But they get to David, and they bring the head of the king with them. Now, I don't know if they kept it in the bag or not, but they bring it to David, and they say, here is the head of Ashibabeth, son of Saul, your enemy, who tried to kill you. This day the Lord has avenged my Lord and King against Saul and his offspring. David, we have secured the throne for you. We have destroyed all living claims to the throne. The line of Saul is now dead, and we have the head to prove it. We are loyal to you. That's where it says the Lord. They go to God. It's always good to bring God in on your bad choices, right? I see that all the time. I think I gave some illustrations of it a few months ago on this podcast, right? Where people break the law, and then they thank God that they weren't caught. It's just funny to me. It can be as simple as, speeding. Well, I was so late, but praise God there were no cops on the road, and I was able to, do 60 in a 35 so that I could get there on time and whatever. So so that's what they did. Like, the Lord has avenged you. Look, the Lord has provided a way of peace for you. Whatever. I'm sure they made quite a show of this. All your troubles are over, David. God showed up on your behalf. And here's proof. and they're done talking. Now, I don't know if David... I have a feeling David responded fairly quickly because of what he did. He didn't actually respond well. He reacted quickly. So David reacts. He answers. He listens to their show of loyalty and their claiming of God's blessing on David, that they were the vehicle through which God blessed David. And David goes, so, as surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of every trouble? He's like, let's get this straight. Let me start this out straight. Now, this is true. This is true. Okay, David starts out good, which is not unusual when you react to things too quickly. Sometimes your on-ramp is still good. It's the highway that you get on that sends you the wrong direction. And that's where it gets confusing, because you think, no, I did the right thing. And it's like, well, no, you started out right. Like, you start out with the right thought. The right thought is, David's like, I don't need you to deliver me. It's the Lord who has delivered me from all my troubles. He's just reminding everybody in the room, I don't get delivered out of trouble by people going to murder other people. That's not how it happens. I get delivered out of trouble because God shows up. I wait for God's timing. And generally speaking, he's correct. He's like, I wait for God to prepare the way, to make the path straight. I don't go making stuff happen so that I don't have troubles anymore. And David's got 7 years in the wilderness and 7 years as king of Hebron. For the last 14 years, he's been waiting, more than 14 years, but at least you could say for the last 14 years, he's been waiting for the peaceful road of God's timing to the throne of the nation. And he's like, he's delivered me. He has delivered me. I wait on the Lord to do this. So let's get that part straight. I don't need you. As surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of all my trouble. I didn't need you to kill Ishibabeth. He said, when someone, let's review something else in this great plan of yours. So I have a feeling, because you got to remember, right? Why are these guys doing this? They're doing this because they expect to be rewarded. They expect to have favor in David. They expect authority and positions out of David. And when you expect to be rewarded, and again, but within the framework of the language in this, it basically, they told David the whole story. And I have no doubt that they started back at the campfire where they first thought of it. And the guy who brought it up, let's just pretend it's the older brother, is like, so it was my idea, because he wants a little bit more favor and a little bit more credibility with David than his younger brother. But it was together. So they go through the whole story. They framed the whole thing as a celebration of God delivering David out of the clan of Saul, to take out all the living possible living people who could ascend to the throne. What do I want to say? Living relatives who could ascend to the throne. I guess that's what I want to say. Heirs. No, that's the word I want to say. Thank you so much. That's the producer in my the engineer in my head telling me, hey Bob, you want the word heir. We've killed all the possible living heirs to the throne. You are now able to sit on the throne in peace, because the Lord has given us an opportunity to do this amazing thing. We got to murder Ishibabeth while he slept. Oh, David, you can't even imagine. Like, we walked into the room. Nobody even cared. The guards, are all gone. There's a few people hanging around the palace. I mean, everybody's in fear of you, David. Everyone wants to submit to you, David. David, you are an amazing king. Everybody loves you. This is going to be awesome. David listens to the whole thing and he responds. All right. So, first of all, I don't need you to deliver me out of troubles. I've always trusted God to do that. The Lord has, and he's always come through. He's always come through. So let's not pretend that you guys did this. And they're like, oh, no, David, of course not. No. We all glory goes to God. All glory goes to God. Okay, fine. Let's cover this too. Do you remember the story of when someone came to me and told me that Saul was dead? Do you remember that? Do you remember they came to me, they brought me his crown, they brought me his wristbands that indicated that he was the king. And they even claimed to have struck the final blow that put him down. Do you remember this? Now, I'm sure these two brothers remembered this. I'm sure they're sitting there going, yes. We all, yes, we know that story. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you do, because, you were working for Saul at the time. So let's review. What did I do? I seized him and put him to death right there in my city. I put him to death in Ziklag. Now, that's the reward I gave him for his news. Now, side note, I do think it's significant that David takes full credit for giving that reward. That he doesn't say, God told me to kill him because of what he did. This is where, again, one of those little subtle things, but I think it's important, because if you're going to see the obvious, that God is good all the time and has been good through all of time, then you're going to see that God doesn't command death. He doesn't use death. He doesn't need to use a tool of the enemy to accomplish the goodness of heaven. But men use death because it seems appropriate. Because for them, in their experience, in the culture that they live in, it seems like an appropriate choice in the moment. And in that moment, it seemed like an appropriate choice. So he's like, that's the reward I gave him for his news. Now, how much more do you think I'm going to do when you killed an innocent man in his own house on his own bed? It was like, this guy killed Saul, who definitely had some faults. He was definitely out to kill me. We all know that. Saul was not innocent. He was guilty as charged as somebody who wanted to murder me for no reason. I had never offended Saul. He was out to kill an innocent man, and everyone knew it. He dies in battle, but he dies at the hand of an Amalekite. Ultimately, he dies at that hand, and I rewarded that Amalekite with death. You walk in to a man's bedroom and you kill him while he's sleeping. Like you're not even in a duel. You're not even, you're not even playing fair. And the man is innocent. He's innocent in that he's never come after me. He's never come after me. He accused Abner of treason and tried to take out Abner, but he backed down from that right away. I have nothing against this man. I had no reason for him to die. The transfer of power happened peacefully. I would have found a way to deal with Ashibabeth. I would have dealt with him peaceably. And look at what you did. You killed him in his own house on his own bed. How can I put a guy to death in Ziklag for bringing me the crown and bracelets of the king and not kill you for killing an innocent man, another king? So yeah, you guys are dead. And he gave the order. And then the men killed him. And they cut off their hands because they were thieves. And they cut off their feet because they brought bad news. And they hung their bodies so everybody could see this is what happens when people attack the house of Saul and think that David's going to be happy about it. This is what happens. This is what happens if you think civil war is a good plan right now. He literally sets the tone. He didn't have to do it through murder. But even in that, diplomatically, he sends a message back to the nation of Israel, to those 10 tribes, and specifically to the tribe of Benjamites. I am not coming after you. And those who do come after you, I'm going to protect you because I will kill them. I will take what they do against you as an act of war. And I'll take them out. And then he took the head of Ashibabeth and he buried it in Abner's tomb. And what that means is that he buried the head of Ashibabeth as a king. He put him in a place of honor. He mourned him as a leader of a nation. And he continued to communicate, I am not out to take advantage of people who are weaker than me. I'm not out to take advantage of a nation that doesn't have leadership and doesn't have a military. I'm not out to do this by force, even though every other king in the nation at this point would have done that. Every other dictator and tyrant and even a lot of clan leaders would have taken the leadership by force, would have wanted to show that they were powerful people because they had the military or they had the chutzpah to murder others. innocently. And David's like, I am not that kind of leader. David's actually way more complicated than that. David has way more layers because of his interaction with heaven. He's far more relational. He's far deeper when it comes to his vision. It's just way bigger than the immediate problem that needs to be solved, the immediate decision that needs to be made. He thinks further down the road because the wisdom of heaven does that. In the moment, he reacted and he put 2 men to death. He could have communicated to the nation of Israel in a number of ways that, listen, I'm not coming after you and I will defend you to the end. He didn't have to murder these 2 guys. But from his perspective, in the moment, without taking heaven's perspective, his perspective was, if I killed a guy for putting an end to Saul's life, putting a merciful end to Saul's life, in battle at Saul's request, then clearly these guys have crossed that line. Like there was a line of justice in David's heart that was like, yeah, these guys crossed it. They crossed it a while ago. And I'm thinking he probably thought this as the story went forward, and he's thinking, he's listening to these 2 guys and he's not feeling better. He's getting madder. Internally, he's like, wow, these guys are out. These guys are done. But David continues to bring peace to the nation. It goes again to the character of David, to the depth of character. Again, not that he's 100% holy. No, what do I want to say? He doesn't make, all his decisions aren't perfect. Some of them are treacherous and wrong and evil. But generally speaking, this guy does the right thing. He follows the heart of heaven. He follows the heart of God. And he shows the goodness of God to the nation over and over and over again. And that's the type of leader you want. That's the type of king that you want. But it doesn't come quickly. Even though the transfer of power has occurred, remember, David still isn't in charge of the nation. His experiences continue to mold him and give him filters and perspectives that will allow him to lead through incredibly complicated times. Because he trusts God with the path that he's going to take. Because ultimately, he lands back in the presence of God and says, all right, whenever you're ready, that will mean that I'm ready. He's not pushing back against God saying, I can do this. I can do this. Give me a promotion. Give me a promotion. Man, I can't. Oh, the number of people that have left for leadership roles before they were ready. That stepped into things that wasn't in the best timing. Now, did God show up? Absolutely, God can still show up. And did things turn out all right? Many times they turn out all right, but that doesn't mean the timing was right. It's just something to consider as we walk through, as you listen through this story. It's epic. It goes on, and family is so valuable to this, to the filter, to this, to this story. You have to consider the layers of family interactions at this point. And it just gets more complicated. And it will get more complicated because on the next round, we'll do that. It's way too. You've been going on for like 50 minutes, Bob. I know. It's true. All right. My engineer says cut off now and let's get David anointed king over the nation. Maybe next time when we meet again. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.